All right, everyone. So welcome back to another episode of Healthy Chats. And look, you all, I really need to press record even before we hit record, because behind the scenes when we coming in, the whole conversation with our guest today could definitely be recorded. It could be live. It could be all other things. But nevertheless, you already know we are bringing positive information, positive news, and we're highlighting amazing men and women all around the world just to check in, right? Check in, get some valuable information, insight, see what's going on, all up in their business just a little bit, not for real, because we don't do all of that. But, I got my girl here with me. Portia Booker is in the building. And I didn't tell y'all who I was, right? Let me back up, rewind just a little bit. And we're not doing no edits. So I am Carleeka Basnight-Menendez, just all of that. And our guest today is one of my, piece of hair grease ladies. That's how the call ends every single time. Is Portia Booker. So Portia, welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, your life, all of the things that you have going on to just join me and just talk.
First of all, Carleeka, always an honor. So much gratitude to you, because you never know when people come into your life, how they fill your cup. I still remember, Carleeka, shortly after or right before my mom transitioned, you said something to me that didn't make sense in the beginning, but I understand it now. I remember when we were talking on the phone and I was walking around the block. It was maybe a couple days actually before she transitioned. I said, why can't my mom fight this time? Because my mom was a military veteran, and Sergeant Lopez had her ways, but she kept her foot up my butt to get me through school and everything. She was tough as nails, but I couldn't understand why in her final moments she had a hard time advocating for herself. And you said to me, Portia, it's her time. It's not that she's not fighting for her way of being here. She did it, and she's encouraging you to keep going. And I was like, you know what? I needed that. Wow. I needed it. It didn't make sense then, because of course, in the initial, when we're losing somebody we love, right? Our mind, there's so much grief that we have pre and post, right? And sometimes we go back to those moments of the people who stood by us before and after. And I still think about when I picked up my mom's ashes from the funeral home, the epiphany I got. Portia, what if your mom's transition is for your transformation? What does that even mean?
Wait a minute. Go ahead and repeat that, because I feel like that's like a whole word for somebody. Yeah. And maybe not in that aspect. Mm-hmm. But when we do change the perspective, that what if someone else's transition is our transformation? And even what we go through, how many times do we not share it? But it may be someone else's transition and transformation all at the same time. Portia, that was deep.
Yeah. What if your mom's transition is for your transformation? Wow. And that birthed the title of my audiobook, Finding Grace Within Grief. Her transition, my transformation. Because Carleeka, let's be realistic. As a caregiver, you kind of become a prisoner, right? You're caring for this person however many days out of the week, spending hours at a time on phone calls, doctors, prescriptions, all the things, right? Taking care of the house, cooking. So you forget how to live. My mom's transition opened the door for me to transform from that full-time caregiver that I became.
Wow. And you often hear a lot of people say in those moments, oh, I would do anything just to have them here. It wasn't a burden, but a lot of times people are getting burnt out, right? Because no one is really, it's all, like you said, you go into this caregiver mode and you kind of pretty much just push yourself to the back, way, way back, right? And then once they're not here, you start realizing like, wow. So think about all of the different titles, right? Mm-hmm. Caregiver being one, but all of the titles that we, you hear people say, oh, I just wear so many hats, right? But it's really like, dude, is that really a good thing? Like, because amongst you wearing all of the hats, when you take all of those hats off or you put them to the side or they're no longer there, right? Who are you? Mm-hmm. What do you love to do that is not attached to anyone else? So Portia, just tell us a little bit about your transformation from that time up until now. What has that looked like for you?
Oh man, Carleeka, let me just start by saying it's been a full metamorphosis. I mean, from the initial transition of my mom, so it'll be 3 years this July that my mom transitioned. It was 2 years this past April for my dad. And my mom's transition, she gave me permission, essentially. Let me start there, because I had to give my mom permission to go. When you talked about how we would give anything to have our loved ones here, absolutely. I'd give up my eyes to see my mom again. If she could be here in the way that she was before she got sick, I'd do anything to have her. At the same time, I can say this now, that I wouldn't want her here in the way that she was, because she was miserable. She essentially became an invalid. She went from having a full circle of life, being out, being with our family, without oxygen, without restriction, to her last week being here, she was wheelchair bound. I wouldn't want her here in that way. And essentially, Carleeka, I think for a period of time, I was kind of codependent on my mom. And that's the first time I've ever admitted that. And like when she left, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. And so when I gave her permission to go, I still have the audio recording of our last conversation an hour before she transitioned. I said, Ma, you can go. I got it. And she said, okay. She said, Portia, go for it. Go for your dreams. And who would have thought, Carleeka, that year of my mom making her transition, 2022, I've heard so many people say that was like a cyclone year for them. Right. So many transformations. Like I wrote my first book. I'd always wanted to write a book, but who would have thought that my angry letters to God, giving him some fine usage, colorful keepsake, as you catch my drift of what that means. Yeah. Who would have thought that would have been the entryway for me to write my first book? Wow. Also to go to a retreat and do a spur of the moment panel with members of parliament from Uganda, wow, where I had prepped 5 minutes before, being full-time in my entrepreneurial endeavors, mm-hmm, where next year I'm going to be doing videography for a retreat where I used to live out of state. Also giving back, mm-hmm, right? Because I said that I wanted to host grief groups, to help people to create community, to give them permission to talk about their loved one, whether it's a pet, their best friend, their mom, their sibling. Because when we all lose somebody, especially if it's our person, and I don't care if it's your dog, I'm going to quote my soul mother here, your dog named Toby. If it's your dog, if it's the job that you've been at for 10 years, where you were that psychologist and all of a sudden life hit you where you lost faith in that, right? That meant something to you. That was a part of your identity, and you deserve a safe space to be able to grieve that.
And I think a lot of times people only associate grief with the loss of a individual, or like you said, a pet, and different things. But I love what you said, that it could be a job. And especially in the times that we're in, we're seeing more people. I've been talking to attorneys and therapists, and their numbers have just went up because people are trying to navigate this emotional roller coaster, this mental anguish, and not knowing where do I turn, what's going to happen in the next hour, right? We're not even talking about the next day. It could even be the next few minutes. What does my life look like? What does this look like? And people are, worry and anxiety and all of these things are on an all-time high. But I love that you brought out that grief is just not an individual or your pet or anything. It can be anything that was a keepsake or close to your heart that meant a lot to you. So in the work that you're doing, impacting lives through navigating grief, and not just navigating those hard parts of it, but really navigating and rebirthing, right? Birthing those things that are within you to keep moving forward and to keep going. What does that look like, Portia, for so many people, right? I've heard, because we've lost people and we've, heartbreaks and all of these different things. And it's just the point of, how do people really navigate to the point where they can thrive, to see that this can be a transition, whether it's a transition from a job, full-time entrepreneurship, going, some people go from full-time entrepreneurship back to corporate America, all of these different things, right? There's always a transition going on. You go from no kids to a whole football team of them. You go from married to divorce, or, vice versa, different things. So we're always going through transitions. But how did, those steps of grief that a lot of us really never was taught, if we really being honest?
Mm-hmm. We're not, because we are a grief avoidant society. I said it. We are a grief avoidant society. Nobody wants to feel, because everything is replaced with, oh, you have PTSD, you're depressed, right? We have to get to the centralized root. And let's be realistic, Carleeka. Grief is forced redirection. I'm going to say that again. Grief is forced redirection. And a lot of times that can be you getting fired from that job, right? You wake up one day and your husband tells you he doesn't love you anymore, so he's telling you to get out, right? That could also be your grown kid is tired of you being dependent upon them and telling them, I don't want you in my life no more, right? Or also, if it's a sudden transition of somebody you talked to 2 hours ago had a heart attack and died, grief is forced redirection. And so how do we learn to integrate grief into our everyday, right? I think that's been the key for me and what I work with all of my clients. Because a lot of them, they've converted their grief into something creative, whether it's a podcast, whether it's their own book, whether it's some type of movement, whether it's some type of course. I think we need to learn how to integrate our grief. And also it stems from doing the deep work on yourself, right? Really doing those check-ins. Like, am I really okay? Like I mentioned in the beginning, July, it'll be 3 years. July 7th, it'll be 3 years since my mom's transition. And I noticed that when I'm leading up to her transition, I feel a little off. I start to feel very tearful, and I start to isolate from people. But at the same time, I'm grateful that I recognize that, where I get to choose. That's the other piece, is you get to choose your grief journey. Because I think we've been so conditioned, Carleeka, to think that grief has to be doom, gloom, resentment, isolation, frustration, just all the things. But if we really stopped to ask ourselves, what do I want this journey to look like? Because I remember the very next day after my mom made her transition, I went out on the front porch and the sky was the same color pink as the robe that my mom wore. And I remember saying a prayer to God. I said, God, I know this grief is going to be heavy, but I want to do it different. I don't want to do it in the same way that I've always done it. Because what's the saying? If I do what I always did, I'll get what I always got.
And I love you the way you said that, simply because a friend of mine, when her son transitioned, people did not know how to really accept that she was grieving differently. It's almost like they tried to push what we have normalized as a society of grieving. And we know that everyone's journey looks different, but though she missed her son physical presence, she really felt, and we had a conversation, she said, I felt like people were trying to make me feel a certain way. And it was really weird to them that I was not just having these breakdowns and different things. She said, yes, I've cried in different things. She was like, but I was trying to let them know that death is not new, right? It wasn't something new. And yes, she would love to have her only son physically here. She said, but she's starting, he was only 20 years old, I think. She said, but it was signs around her of his life, right? And the love that how his love impacted, right? Nothing physically tangible, but his love and his smile impacted so many lives. She said, so the legacy of love, she said, but it was baffling to so many people that how she was handling it. And I said, because we have normalized, passing out, falling out, all of these different things. And to anyone if that's how you grieve, that's how you grieve. But you said it that I get to choose.
You get to
not
choose.
To say you wasn't going to have any harder days, and not to say you wasn't going to feel the weight of it, right? Or cry sometimes. And sometimes, think about grief overall. Sometimes we shed tears with a smile on our face, right?
Yeah, and tears are healthy. Tears are a form of communication, right? One of the things I brought up in one of the grief groups that I hosted was not all the time tears are water running down our face. Sometimes those tears are you yelling, expressing how hurt you are, how angry you are at the person who you lost, your person, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be that they transition from something sudden or they had severe illness, right? You could be upset that you wish they would have taken care of themselves better, right? And the guilt. I don't even want to get started on guilt because there's a lot that I had in the very beginning, and I've really worked to let a lot of that go. Because one of the things you brought up was that love energy that still permeates from our loved ones who have transitioned. The thing that I always like to say to that, Carleeka, is that we are a collection of all of the people who we've encountered. We are a collection of all of their experiences with us, all of their phrases. And so we carry them with us in our everyday. It's just, how do we choose to honor them? How do we choose to help other people with what we've learned? Because some people, I've seen them where they've been a prisoner of their grief 5, 10, 30. 15, 50 years. And to your point about your friend with her son, that sometimes people will project onto you their unresolved grief, right? And so you kind of got to be a gladiator.
It's almost like with anything, there's a certain persona, there's a certain projection that this is how you're supposed to, if you're not doing this, right? If you don't see me looking sad because I might have a hot flash, right? How do you find the happy in menopause when you're dealing with things, right? How do you find the happy in grief when your heart has been broken or whatever that transition looks like? And I just believe what you're doing and the message that you're sending out is we can find the positive even while we're pushing through the storm or the messy waters of things, right? We can still find the positive. And I think if more of us really start honing in on what is the lesson, what am I learning through this, and actually, like you said, do the work. Right.
Yeah, and it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, it is hard, and it starts with one single step: commitment to yourself. Okay, you lose your spouse. I'm gonna just start with my mom. My mom was one of my role models and cheerleaders. One of the things that she always said to me was, make the best of it, darling. And I still say it all the time when I'm having a rough day: make the best of it. So even as I'm grieving that she's no longer physically here, I seek the gratitude in what I took from her these last 30 years of my life. How to show up as a good person in the world, how to be a productive member of society. I've even integrated, because I brought up that both of my parents have transitioned now.
Right.
And my dad and I did not have the best relationship. And it took a lot out of me to be the bigger person and forgive him and show up for him as he made his transition from the world when he had been absent majority of my life. So there was a lot of deep inner healing that I had to do. And a lot of that stemmed after my mom transition, because I saw so many different signs. I was reminded of the importance to really take life as it is and not wait. You know, if there's something on your heart, tell people you love them.
Absolutely.
Right. And don't, I love the saying, Carleeka, of hurt people, because people choose.
Absolutely.
Right. What is your choice? Are you going to choose to be bitter and angry when you lost your person? Or are you going to start doing some deep work? You really got to ask yourself, who do I want to be?
Absolutely. And I love what you said. It's a choice. We get to decide, right? I remember reading something and it's like, you know what? Being overweight is hard. Losing weight is hard, right? So many things that you can compare, but you get to choose your heart. And even in the positive things of moving forward, we know healing, doing a healing journey and detoxing and all of these things is amazing, but it can be hard, right? Moving to a new place, meeting new people, all of those things, going to a new job, it can be hard. Raising kids, it can be, you get to choose your heart. And so look, you all, we can, Portia and I can go on, because I really hope this was very helpful and insightful to all of us, right? Because we don't, day to day, we don't know what grief may look like in our life, minute to minute, second to second. We don't know. But if you are grieving, right, or you do have some deep rooted trauma and healing, there's hope. You're looking at women of hope right before you today, right? Because we've trampled on some hard things, and I don't know what my next hard thing may be, right? But I'm thankful for people like Portia. I'm thankful, of course, for the word of God. I'm thankful for your community. And so, like Portia said, we're products of all of these different things. That's why it's important that you choose wisely who you're around, and your words that's coming out of your mouth, and the thoughts that's on, the things that you're thinking about all day long, and different things. But we don't know what grief looks like for us minute to minute. But what we do have, we have tools, we have strategies, we have people to support us and love on us and to help guide us through step by step. And really you honing in and saying, hey, I am not okay today because of, and not trying to mask it and hide it through work, even through good things, right? Right, we want to love ourselves to health and not to death, meaning even in the good things such as working or being creative. But when you start just engulfing yourself in these things, you're still not really taking care of yourself. And so, Portia, before we leave, just let everyone know how they can connect with you and any final words of encouragement you want to provide.
Carleeka, again, lots of gratitude to you. Thank you for inviting me on and being in my corner, because you've been on the ride with me since both of my parents transitioned. So for those of you who want to connect with me, I'm on all social media platforms: Facebook, Portia Booker, LinkedIn, Portia Booker, Instagram, at Portia the Grief Grantor. Also, you can email me at talktome, so TALKTOME at groovewithportia.com. Final words for all of you. Look, your grief journey is your own. I'm going to say it again. Your grief journey is your own, and you get to choose what that looks like. Always remember that no grief is off the table. When you lose that one person who has been that rock for you, find that way to honor them. Keep that love connection open, because you never know how you sharing what you've been through is going to be the down payment and the opening door for somebody else to believe in themselves again.
Well, you all heard it first. So look, don't just remember that your transition or someone else's transition is your possible transformation. So let's keep evolving, let's keep growing, and let's continue having these healthy conversations. That's what Healthy Chats is all about. We're not talking about one topic or one subject. We want you to have it all. So if you know someone that should be a guest, look, let them know. Holla at your girl. You can even DM me, connect with me on all social media platforms, Carleeka Basnight-Menendez. Just start typing it in. It'll pop up, right? Nevertheless, Portia, again, we say thank you for this healthy chat and conversation, one that a lot of times people shun away from, but we are going to do the work and do your healing journey is your healing journey. Your grief journey is your journey, and you get to decide. So today we're deciding that, you know what, we're going to keep doing the work and keep moving forward and impacting lives. Take care, and until the next time, I'm your girl over here having a hot flash, but I got my fan, okay? Carleeka Katrina Basnight-Menendez. Portia didn't say it, but she normally in the call with me. All right, peace and hair grease, everybody.
Peace, hair grease, and a lot of that.
I love it. Talk to you all soon.